D'Angelo, what a loss. Rest in peace. I mean, I found out the news today that he died from pancreatic cancer, and at such a young age, 51 years old, but such a significant career because he is the bridge, in my opinion, between the golden era of soul music and I think the roots and the innovation of American music between the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And of course, music before then too, but I think he was that bridge between that era and what the musicality and the direction of modern contemporary soul music was. People have dubbed him neo soul. I think that's what the marketing folks kind of put together for this genre. But I think D'Angelo, at the core of what he did, was a blues player. He was a soul singer, and he knew how to play the blues. I mean, if you listen to this song, well, you will, when we go into the song Brown Sugar, which we're going to react to today in his honor, it's a blues song. It's a blues song, and it was him making a statement, bridging the gap between the blues and hip-hop. You kind of have that Jay Dilla sensibility about the drums, and of course, he was such a big collaborator with the Roots and Questlove and that whole Soul Aquarian crowd, but I think he was the guy that had that lineage from the Donny Hathaways, from the Ray Charles, from the Stevie Wonders, and of course Prince, but the blues was at the essence of, I think, what made D'Angelo's music what it was, and he retained that foundation musically. So today, let's honor a legend and go back to his first single that really put him on the map, Brown Sugar.
Let me tell you about this girl, maybe I should. I met her in Philly, and her name was Brown Sugar. See, we be making love constantly, that's why my eyes are a shade blood burgundy. The way
I mean, right off the bat, he sets the tone. I mean, it is very much, obviously, he's singing the blues, but he's flowing, he's rhyming. He has a flow to this, and he is very much bridging that gap between the blues and hip hop. And I think the fact that the space that's in this on this record, it's very, very 90s, but it's also very, very much, there's an intentionality behind it. But even just like the sound of that.
Let me tell you about this girl, maybe I shouldn't. I met her in Philly, and her name was Brown Sugar. We been making love constantly, that's why my eyes are a shade blood burgundy.
that we kiss isn't like any other way that I be kissing when I'm kissing what I'm missing. Won't you listen? Brown sugar, babe. I guess high up your love, I don't know how to behave.
And he's got the gospel sensibility there. It's the call and response. And, he has that arrangement style. This is very much an ode to what he grew up on, but also bringing that 90s sensibility to it, that modern flair for the time. And it was very stylish. I think just like even you can feel the mojo oozing through the record. It's got very much that, hey, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm walking through the big cities, and I've made a name for myself now. And D'Angelo was that, second coming. When he came out, everybody was saying he was not just a prodigy because he was of age, but I think the biggest thing about him was they identified him very quickly as the prototype of, hey, you come from this school. You come from the Donny Hathaways and the Stevie Wonders. I said this in the beginning of the video, but he very much had that. He had the musicality, like to be able to play like that, to be able to sing, and to be able to also be a band leader. You got to understand, especially back then, a lot of people trying to compete for space on the radio. This is pre-streaming. This is pre-social media and all that. People were in that generation that was like, hey, hip-hop had just come out. Where do young black artists come out and start making a name for themselves when everything's already been saturated, and it's very difficult to break into hip-hop and make a name for yourself? R&B is kind of seen as soft. It's kind of, you're either this pretty boy guy that's kind of doing, music for ladies. But D'Angelo had that flair where he made music where everyone's like, oh, this is stylish. This is where this is a direction that we can kind of point towards and say, hey, that's where we can take this musicality thing. I think he's kind of on par with what guys like Miles Davis were for his time, where everybody wanted to not just sound like Miles, they wanted to look like Miles, they wanted to be like Miles, talk like Miles. D'Angelo brought that sensibility to the 90s and the early 2000s. And I think a lot of people were influenced by this, even outside of the immediate circle of influence that he might have had. I mean, John Mayer is a huge proponent of D'Angelo's music. I mean, Pino Palladino, who played with D'Angelo, played with John Mayer. I mean, John selected him because he played with D'Angelo, and he wanted that vibe, that kind of Dilla-esque, drunken drum kind of flavor. But D'Angelo had that musicality that kind of enveloped the entire package and made it still not too complicated for people that were transitioning from hip-hop back into some of this roots music. So keep that in mind as well as we go through this.
Oh, sugar, when you're close to me, you love me right down to my knees. And whenever you let me hit it, sweet like honey when it comes to me. Skin is caramel with the cocoa eyes. Even got a big sister by the name of Chocolate. Brown sugar, babe. I guess high off of love, don't know how to behave.
I mean, the way that he's flowing is just effortless. And there's a interesting correlation I like to make where most people, when they're talented at one thing, they're talented at many things. And sometimes the strength of their talent will obviously rise to the top. The cream rises to the top. But I think he's very much in line with like guys like Chris Brown, who are extremely talented at whatever they touch. Chris is an amazing rapper. I think D'Angelo had that flow sensibility. He could have been a rapper if he wanted to, but he just had a phenomenal voice as well. And a perfect voice for storytelling within the context of this new medium of kind of bringing whatever, people were calling neo soul together, which was kind of this hip hop sensibility with the soul music aspect laid upon it. And I think D'Angelo was able to kind of bridge that, the way to be a musician within this context very well. He wasn't too pretentious to the hip hop audience, but he also wasn't just kind of doing, stabs and making it very easy so that he kind of dumbed it down for people. It was a lot of great synergy here in his artistry that kind of really defined what direction that music was going to take. I know that sounds like I'm being redundant here, but I can't stress enough the significance of what he was as a bridge in the culture, and even as an important musical block in the way we are all still listening to music today. And even just that whole thing of just letting the music do the talking sometimes. I think there's a lot of musicality that's been lost in not just today's music, but I think the way that music feels like it can't be marketed if there's too much of a gap between the listener's attention span and what's actually going on. I think this is the last kind of wave of mainstream music, and I want to be clear about that. Mainstream music that was allowed to have a lot of musicality. Pop music today, I think there are a lot of great records, but and I'm not one of those guys that is trying to be the stereotypical, oh yeah, music today sucks. It's not that. That's not the case. But mainstream music today is more of a marketing tool than it is an actual art form on its own. I think the whole idea of what music is being used for these days is to push messages or to be branded against another, kind of campaign. I think even the artists themselves, it's who can drive the 360 deal the hardest, who can generate the most amount of cultural impact around the most attention-grabbing mediums and be able to kind of have a hold on their attention for people that aren't really, they're not really stingy with their attention. They'll give it anywhere. You can kind of take anyone's attention these days when it comes to mainstream music because there's already an audience that's been kind of groomed, so to speak. But D'Angelo, he was mainstream, which it's such a contrast to what's coming out now. And I think there are certain things that are going to slowly shift that tide, but that's where I feel like, people still go back to this music. This is not super old where people are like going back and listening to Michael Jackson or Stevie Wonder, but it's like very, very near and dear to a lot of people's hearts because they were like, hey, you kind of showed me that there was this other portal. He was almost a gateway, which is the word I should have used in the beginning, but he was a gateway to what, his influences were. Where I think these days a lot of people will almost kind of package themselves as who they are, and they won't go into the actual artistry themselves. They won't talk about what got them to that point or talking about the journey. It's all about them, all about, whatever cause they believe in, whatever thing that's going to buy them brownie points on the internet. But this was straight ahead musicianship that was packaged in a very effective way because the music did the talking. You didn't really have to market him too much. I mean, he had How Does It Feel and he had the sex appeal, but I think the biggest thing was D'Angelo was a musician's musician.
It goes, brown sugar got me open, now I want some more. Always down for all my nauseous swine, but I think I'm here to solo, who my niggas don't mind. Stick out my tongue and I'm about ready to hit this pretty bitty with persistence. Yo, I don't think y'all hit me. Brown sugar, babe, I guess high off of love, don't know how to behave.
And this is the other thing too, just letting it vibe. He just let the band and let the music kind of do its things. He's just on a vamp. I mean, the whole time. I'm obviously fucking up the bass line here, but I think, he had that vamp thing. It was the blues. That's all it was. And I think it's similar to John Lee Hooker having the one string going on, or Muddy Waters just doing a riff. That was him. And it was riffing on top of a very straightforward riff that would resonate with a lot of people. That's D'Angelo. Whew. D'Angelo. I mean, he had that thing. He was a special artist, and to say the least. And I think there was such hope for so much more music to come out of this man. I mean, even when you hear him live, I don't know, somebody in the comments can probably tell me, but I feel like him and the rest of the Soul Aquarians, they kind of saw the direction the music industry was heading in, and they took a break, and they kind of said, you know what, this is not where we thrive, this is not where our art is supposed to live. And I feel like a lot of people have realized that in the creative space, where this is not the same industry that, it's worth to put your blood, sweat, and tears into. You can find different ways to kind of pour out creativity, but I don't think this is the industry that was positioned to most of us growing up. And I think D'Angelo and those guys saw that, and they were like, you know what? Let's focus on doing live shows. Every once in a blue moon, we'll work on a project. God knows. I mean, maybe he has a big vault of music. I don't know. But I think the thing about him is that he was able to figure out, who he was as an artist at a very young age and be able to put that out into the world and to capture, I think, the essence of, what he wanted to put down while he was here on Earth. And I think there's 2 albums that kind of speak to this. There's Brown Sugar and Voodoo, which I will do a reaction to Voodoo at another time. But, a lot of intentionality. And I think him, Erykah Badu, Jay Dilla, the Soul Aquarians, those guys, I think they understood that, hey, you know what? There is going to be an audience that appreciates what we've done, and they will continue to appreciate it. And I think the beautiful thing about these artists is that they were getting better with time. It's a nice thing about playing the blues. It's the only art form that you can keep performing as you get older, and you're supposed to kind of get better as you get older because there's more life experience, more soul, and there's more of a incentive to slow down and to actually focus on what you really want to say and what you really want to play. And usually with these videos, I like to leave everyone with, some perspective they can use to sharpen their own journey. And I think that kind of said it right there for what this is take your time with things. As we can see, a lot of legends that we've lost in the last decade, but D'Angelo, 51 years old. Think about that. I'm turning 35 in December. That's 15 years away. When I look at 15 years ago, a lot happened, but man, I still remember where I was. I still remember what that time was. Life goes by quick, and I'm starting to see that at my own age, let alone being 51, and you had such a body of work behind you. You were such a established creative force, but also, you held on to your integrity and you kind of protected the human side of you. You didn't give in to this industry. You didn't give in to the qualms of how people get kicked around, and you did it on your own terms. So for that, I salute you. D'Angelo, rest in peace. And to you all watching, thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next video. All the best.